Chronic absenteeism is a problem for school districts and students across the country. While some states have seen modest gains, the situation has grown significantly worse since the pandemic. Nearly 30% of students were chronically absent during the 2021 and 2022 school year. That's according to the most recent federal data. And that's defined as missing at least 10% of school days. It can have major consequences for student achievement and much more, and many districts are struggling with it, including Missouri. Our communities correspondent, Gabrielle Hayes, joins us now from St. Louis. Gabby, it's good to see you. So give us a sense of the state of chronic absenteeism in Missouri and across the country based on your reporting.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. Well, I think, it's important to understand that here in Missouri, we're kind of trailing national data. It's not much better, but it hasn't gone back to what it was. So the most recent numbers that we've seen from our state report card point to nearly a quarter of our students across the state of Missouri being absent. Now, if we're comparing this year to last year, as you've noted, what we're seeing nationwide, we've seen very, very modest gains. But again, the place of concern for our school administrators and our experts is that those numbers have not returned to what they were pre-pandemic. And that is something that is especially of concern, not just in Missouri, but nationwide, so much so that we've seen the White House come out on this, not just last year, but even today, emphasizing the issue of chronic absenteeism across the states and across the country.
What did they say about the impact that absenteeism is having?
Yeah, well, today we heard from the White House, from the Education Secretary, from governors across the country, and they note just how big this issue is of chronic absenteeism and what it means for students across the country. They really honed in on the fact that, how can our nation's students learn if they're not in the classroom, and emphasize the need for some sort of roadmap to help states navigate some accountability when it comes to that. But we heard especially from Domestic Policy Advisor Neera Tanden on this.
Absenteeism can account for up to 27% of the test score declines in math we've seen, and 45% of the test score declines in reading, respectively. We know that from the Council of Economic Advisors and deep research they've done. The truth is, we simply cannot accept chronic absenteeism as the new normal.
Now, I want to emphasize something that I heard, not just from school administrators, not just from the state, and not just from the White House, but from researchers that have emphasized this as well, are these long, far-reaching impacts of chronic absenteeism and what that can mean to students. And they've linked this not only to things like its effects on mental health, but also the ability of a person to earn a living long-term.
So what are the barriers keeping students out of the classroom then?
That's a really good question. I think one thing that's imperative to point out, that administrators have pointed out to me and experts, is that we're talking about barriers that young people faced even before the pandemic, that the pandemic maybe made even worse, right? Attendance Works, which is a national organization that works at this issue, calls them root causes. So we're talking about anything from child abuse to not having access to transportation, to not having access to stable housing. So if you add a global pandemic to all of these root causes, it makes for a very rough scenario for a lot of our young people who are not showing up to school. Hetty Chang, the executive director of Attendance Works, spoke to me about this and of the importance of understanding what these barriers are.
A major challenge in our work on around attendance is that people's reaction to when kids miss school, often in this country, we think it's because a kid and family doesn't care. This is not about whether you care or not. This is about whether you face barriers or challenges and issues coming to school.
This is a big thing that Chang stressed to me, that in order to really take a look at this issue, it has to go beyond the numbers. The numbers are a good start, but it has to go beyond the numbers and misconceptions about why young people aren't at school.
So how are schools handling this, and what do experts say needs to be done?
Yeah, well, I think on one hand, school districts have told me they're really just trying to communicate and learn as best they can why students aren't showing up so they can help them. But Chang really emphasized to me that there needs to be more data, there needs to be more investigation into what this looks like and why it looks like it, so that once we have all of the numbers to know how far this goes, that we can work together to solve it and really attack this as a case-by-case basis, because every student is different and every story is different.
Our communities correspondent Gabrielle Hayes in St. Louis. Thanks so much.